Hello YouTube, this is my first real video from Jimmy's Jig Rig Jungle Gym, and I'm going to be talking, like a lot of people have talked before, about the shortcomings of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 in Pathfinder. Now, you've heard this all before. There's 1,000 ways people have fixed it in their games or done things different to fix the problems I'm talking about. I'm sure nothing I'm going to talk about in this video is relatively new. You've heard it before. But I assure you, in the series of videos to come, I'm going to talk about how I took these issues and fixed them for my group here that I play with, that I'm game master for currently. Some in-depth fixes backed up by calculated numbers on a spreadsheet and advanced through levels 1 through 20 that scale. And it addresses a lot of the issues that people had with 3.5 and Pathfinder. Now, you might say the game's functional, and it's surely functional. But in the end, it would be better if the game, all players, no matter what theme they wanted to get into and represent, could viably represent that theme, and all of them contribute relatively equally. Now, it's never going to be perfect, but I have some changes that my group has liked a lot, and I think are pretty cool, personally, that I'd like to talk about. And before we can get into the changes, I got to cover the issues that, and why we've had a problem with this and where I'm going to go to fix it. So the first thing is, sure you've heard it before, Tier 1 casters, Wizards, Clerics 3.5, and Druids, and Pathfinder Clerics got to get a little bit of a nerf. But those are the guys everybody wants to be. Those are the guys that are changing the game, making hit point damage not even worth considering, making that the least effective way to deal with threats, and completely overshadowing any other sort of character. Now, the Tome of Battle and the Path of War with Pathfinder did a little, and especially the homebrew with those two, did some to fix it. However, there's still a huge gap. My solution was to nerf casters, and I did that in a more flavorful way. I think you'll be able to make a more thematic, cool, interesting caster with my system than the ones from Core. And I'll get more into that. I'm going to make specialized videos for all these topics. But now I'm going to explain them before we get into that. So the first one, Tier 1 casters, putting rogues, fighters, barbarians up there with them in a way that makes sense and keeps everybody looking cool. The second thing, within the barbarian, fighter, paladin, ranger group, is power attack. Power attack and more power attack. If you're a melee fighter, you're going to be taking power attack. And it's okay. And along with that is the 2-up and fighting progression. And for range characters, the rapid shot archery progression. Now, they're okay. They work. I mean, they're the best standard, they do viable hit point damage if you do that. But the problem is it narrows down the themes a character can pick between. And I'm going to get a lot more into detail in that on that video. But what I wanted to do was bring other themes into the same power level as that one. So even if, you had something different than your standard longbowman with a compound bow, you're shooting a million arrows at the other guy, you can still be viable and contribute just as much as him. The third thing I wanted to talk about today was the class system and how it's fairly rigid. And I know Pathfinder did a lot with the archetype system, which is really cool. I mean, it was one of the best ones so far. And I would argue it works. And Dungeons & Dragons had the prestige class system, which I think enforces way too much flavor, theme onto your character, where you want to build that yourself. A lot of those had organizations tied to them, or specific, gimmicky attack methods, which were cool. I mean, if you wanted to do that. But it was more like they assigned the theme and the flavor to your character rather than letting you build it yourself out of what you want to build it from, making the character what you want it to be. Rather, they say, here, pick from the large list of themes and viable characters. You pick one of those, whereas I imagine a system where you simply say, all right, well, I want to make this guy, he does this in this way, and you can do it no matter what that is viably. So I think the class system, Pathfinder's archetype did a lot to fix it, but I think it can easily be done without too much effort, without making it too difficult. It can be done in an easier way, and I'm going to expose that as well. The last, or the next to last thing I want to talk about is hit point scaling, damage scaling. Now, I ran the numbers, and we're going to get into that in the hit point video. But the main concern is that level 1, power attacking with a two-handed weapon, it's going to instantly kill anything. I mean, with the core hit point rolls. And then sorcerer or wizard spellcasters, tier 1 casters even, fireballs looks cool, but until you get it maximized, I mean, that 1d6 per level just isn't really up there with the fighter. And you could say, yeah, with the wizard instantly immobilizes foe. And yes, that's true. But I think it would also be cool if the wizard had a viable method of doing hit point damage and isn't trapped into that role of just, oh, I put them to sleep. You know, I teleport them to another dimension, I teleport us out of here. Rather than do that, I think it's good to have wizards and spellcasters that are actually capable of getting in there and shooting a viable lightning bolt at something and contributing in that way, if that's what you're interested in. Now, I think that, the more supporty casters with the sleep spells that just end encounters, I think that is okay too and should be there. And that's definitely still there. But I also want there to be the ability for casters to do viable hit point damage in a cool, functional way. And I achieved that, I think. My group agrees that my system that I'm fleshed out covers that pretty good. The final item I'm going to talk about today is the Killer Christmas Tree. Magic item loot per level, the wealth chart, that bad boy. It's, again, I'm not the first to talk about it. There's some great articles out there. Remember one, the chopping down the Killer Christmas Tree, if I'm not mistaken. Beautiful on the topic. I'm just going to talk about how I specifically address it. And basically what I do is cut the magic wealth chart in half and allow them to spend half of that on stat bonuses that are kind of like leveling up your character. I mean, it's kind of tied as a class feature at that point. And the other half is wealth that you find throughout dungeons and stuff. And with my feat chain, that I got into it a little bit earlier about how making power attack, not the soul, and rapid shot the only ways to do viable hit point damage. In there, you're going to be able to do your build. You're going to be able to build a character with a theme you want viably without needing those magic weapons, that certain magic item to do it. So you're going to be able to have your character's theme, and magic items would feel special. In Lord of the Rings, I mean, Frodo's sword was a big deal. All it did was glow when the orcs came around. I mean, that was pretty cool, though. People love that. It's baller. Like, he was rolling in a magic sword, even though that's all it really did. And his mithril chainmail, I mean, it wasn't even magic. It was just a special material. And it was great. It was cool. I loved that. I mean, when he got hit in the caves. That's how magic items should feel. I mean, less is more, in my opinion. And by giving them the boring +1 stat bonuses as a part of their class, it frees up the dungeon master to put interesting magical loot where he sees fit without worrying about messing up a character's build. And that concludes I think we're at 5 major areas I'm talking about. I may have lied earlier and said I was done early. Not sure. But anyway, those are the main areas. I'm going to make a series of videos for those 5. I think it was 5 things. All right. Thanks for watching very much. Look forward to talking to you guys again.